Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Legal for Tech, the podcast. As I've said already, this is just a podcast created by a group of friends who are us, basically, and we are collaborating on talking about anything that really interests us, which is legal, technology, and how the legal sector impacts in the regulation of technology. So today I will be explaining something and I will be talking about the DMA with my colleague Giacomo, who's been joining me, and he will tell you something about himself.
Hello everyone. Really happy to be here discussing digital stuff. I'm actually a peer in the Legal for Tech project. I'm working in Brussels as a young graduate, but I'm really passionate about digital topics and innovation. So that's why I joined this brilliant group of students and young graduates. And yeah, so let's say I hope I won't be too much policy focused on this discussion, but it will be really insightful, I guess. Really,
I love
Rosie?
how Giacomo is trying not to make me feel bad for not having graduated yet. Thank you, Giacomo. So we will be now talking about the DMA, and this legislation has been actually into force since 2023, and companies had basically a year for complying until the beginning of 2024. So we will now be talking about like how they have managed, but also what their obligations entailed. What did they have to do? So starting off, before I drift off into my legal stuff, Giacomo, would you mind telling us what is the DMA? Why does it matter?
Sure. The DMA is a new regulation that was adopted by the European Union, and as you said, is already in force. And its objectives are basically to promote competition in the European single market and also to enhance consumer choice. So to level a little bit the playing field in the European single market and to force big tech and digital platforms with some obligations, basically. The main player of the DMA is for sure the gatekeeper. The gatekeeper is basically a digital platform which offer core platform services. As an example, we could use, for example, Google, or for example, we can have Meta, who is offering Facebook as a core platform service. And there are, of course, some ways to be designated as a gatekeeper.
I bet it's complicated because knowing the European Union, it's gonna be complicated.
Yeah, as always, I would say. So yeah, basically, a digital platform can be designated according to two thresholds that are the qualitative and the quantitative thresholds. For the quantitative, we have different numbers that you could look at the presentation that we developed with Rosalia for more specific numbers.
I did copy paste, guys. Like, don't think that I remember the numbers. I copy paste.
Exactly. That's why I'm not talking about numbers. So that's the important thing.
Numbers do matter, but not today.
Yeah. So there are like it entails like the number of users and the number of member states involved. But the most important threshold is the qualitative for sure, because if you don't meet the quantitative thresholds, you could also be designated as a gatekeeper according to the qualitative ones. For example, we had the not designation of X, the former Twitter, that wasn't designated because of quantitative
Because
threshold.
Elon Musk was so mean that like the European Union didn't want to have anything to do with him.
Yeah, probably yes. With the Trump administration, they know that they will have like a new player.
Talking politics. That's where you said that you would be talking about politics. I get you.
Yeah.
I get you.
So yeah, basically these are the thresholds through which a platform can be designated. But as a policy guy, I really would like to know more about the legal stuff. How especially the legal structure of the DMA. I'm sure you know more about this, Rosie.
Yeah, you have too much faith in me, but also I will do my best. Please bear with me a second. So let's start with how normally European legislation is structured. So there will be normally a very, very long preamble. And again, numbers don't matter to European Union, so I can assure you it's very long. But why is this important? I mean, why would you write a preamble when you can just write the legislation? So, what I really find interesting is that in the preamble, the European Union states what's really the effective objective of a regulation. So, the DMA comes as one of the many regulations that's actually looking at the digital market. If you think that the GDPR applies, then there's the DSA, then there is, of course, anti-competition law. We can see how much the European Union has thought of this for finding a special objective to the DMA. And this special objective is stated in the preamble, again, numbers, and it is to ensure contestability and prevent unfairness. Why is this very important? Because gatekeepers who are operating in the digital market, they offer a core service to any business wanting to get in touch with consumers through the platform. So that's what happens when you buy some kind of like, I don't know, hand cream from Amazon. You're not talking directly to the business, you're talking through Amazon with the business. So the point is that it's very difficult for businesses to actually go to the digital platform and say, hey, I want to do this as well. Because of the economies of scale, because these platforms are massive, if you think of like Google or Meta. So the idea of the European Union is, I mean, ensuring that it's not just the platform that calls the shot. And why is that important? Because that would be profoundly unfair. And that would be completely against the purpose of the European Union in regulating the European market. So that's why I'm actually loving this preamble, which you're never going to hear me saying again. But so yeah, just delete whatever I said previously. But it is what's stated in the preamble that's actually explaining why Article 5 and Article 6, which are the articles on the obligations, are constructed that way. What is the purpose? Is it to have smaller platforms, smaller gatekeepers? No. It's to ensure that the consumer has a relationship with the business which can profit of the presence of a gatekeeper, but doesn't necessarily have to abide to its rules. So is that helpful in a way?
Yeah, I guess so, totally. Because from a legal point of view, I'm not really really good. So that was super insightful. And but what about for example, the do's and don'ts for these gatekeepers? Like, what are their main obligations? What do they need to do when they are designated as a gatekeeper?
Yeah, so I liked how you framed it. It's do's and don'ts. So basically, these platforms are not just required to avoid doing something, which is normally like quite a laissez-faire perspective. They're also required to actually take steps into kind of getting the situation a bit better. So their dues normally just require to behave in a specific way, so to disclose their information to the European Commission. And I mean, yeah, they haven't been that happy to do so, I would say. But also they have to ensure interoperability, which is a very long word, which is a word that I've actually had to train to pronounce. But I am actually told that it means that you can use any service on the platform, and it doesn't matter if the service was offered by the platform itself or by a third party. So what I'm thinking about is like given that I am constantly broke, sometimes when I buy something from Amazon, for example, I don't have enough money on my bank account. So I really like being able to divide the total amount into 3 or 4 installments. And to do that, I can't do it through Amazon. I have to use another service, for example, ScalaPay, let's say. So that is interoperability, that I can use ScalaPay, I can use PayPal, I can use anything on Amazon without Amazon having to provide the service itself or having to decide which services you can use and which you can't. Then I would say, very interestingly, this interoperability idea kind of is extended not only to the consumer, but also to the business. So the business itself can decide which services they want to purchase from the gatekeeper and which they don't. So, for example, they can advertise their products, but then they can say, hey, come buy it on my website, which is totally available and should be kind of allowed. Because if you think of like a supermarket, you can decide to buy from this shop, the M&S of the situation, if you are in England, or I don't know what's in Brussels. But at the same time, you can also decide to go to the small, cute boutique and buy the cheese from there, for example. Not that I buy loads of cheese, I'm vegetarian, but anyway. So that's quite interesting. As for the don'ts, yeah, they do kind of depend all on consent. So, I mean, what's your take? Do you think that consent is that important in this case? Do you think that consumers can give a free consent?
I think it should be like fair and transparent for sure. Like for the consumers, you like the digital platforms should give like a really transparent access to like how to say like consent really transparent on their side, so that the users can know what they are, how they are giving like access to their data and so on. And also it should be important for the digital platforms to give the possibility to opt out pretty easily for the users. And also, what for me is really impactful among these do's and don'ts is, for example, the fact that the digital platforms should show transparently how they use their advertisings, because this is, for example, is a concern of these big platforms, because they, of course, they are giving like the information how they are using their advertising, and to the other competitors. So the other competitors could get this information from them, and that would be like downing like their efforts till that point. And also, I would say like the searching results. For example, if we think about Amazon, right now with the DMA, Amazon cannot rank its own services on the top of the search results. I'm sure you know about the Amazon Basics product. Before the DMA,
Unfortunately, being completely and always utterly broke, I do know of the Amazon basic products.
we know, we're
You
still
work. You don't count. You work.
I still do count, trust me. And yeah, so basically, right now, Amazon cannot put their own products at the beginning of the search results. They cannot favor their products, and this could be like a sharing with others, like how they show the results during the search could be like a problem for innovation, for competition with other competitors, because of course if I'm like a competitor of Amazon, I could take like the way Amazon is offering like the search results, and I could compete with it. I don't know if you agree with me.
No, it's actually really interesting. So, like, if I know how Amazon is going to place the products, the kind of order, I could like look at it and say, aha, actually, the way I can maneuver around it could be more profitable, but because I'm a smaller competitor, the DMA won't apply to me.
Yeah,
Is that
exactly.
kind of
Yeah,
uh-huh. It's really
That's
clever.
that's exactly the point. And also, talking still about concerns, we are always thinking like the DMA is impacting a lot on American big tech. That which is true. Right now, we don't have like big unicorns coming from the European Union, but there are also some concerns from European companies because, of course, like if we would ever have these unicorns, they could arrive at some point of their profits and say, okay, that's enough. I mean, I don't want to go over it. I don't want to innovate more because I have this sort of rules if I'm designated as a gatekeeper. So I will stay here. So this is totally another topic, but would be interesting also to discuss this. Like, are we promoting innovation in the European market, or are we just putting under the bed?
I really like your point because I believe that, like, from the legal kind of point of view, we are actually trained into believing that more regulation is better. So, whenever you have something blocking some kind of huge superpower from succeeding at the expense of someone else, in our opinion, that's going to be useful. But your point is something different. Is like, yeah, right, we're gonna go against the big bad guys from the US, the Jeff Bezos of the situation, but I mean, we are going against our own interests as well because we are not able to kind of set up our own European market because of these regulations, because they are cutting our legs even before we grow up to the level of having these legs. This is really, really, really interesting, actually. See, I needed to talk to a policy guy for once, because
For
this is something we do not think about in the legal sector. And I'm sure our listeners will agree with me. We never, ever, ever saw that coming. So,
Yeah, yeah, and also, yeah, I mean, of course, I'm not like the guy saying, okay, we don't want to have regulations and that's it. It's also really important to protect consumer choice and, yeah, let's say, their rights because it's important to tackle this big US tech and also speaking still about the transatlantic cooperation, like the Biden administration till now was tackling a little bit the big tech platforms, of course, not like the European Union. And so, of course, we need some sort of regulation, but also we need to think about like the trade-off between the regulation, not regulation. For example, as an Italian, I have a pretty nice example that could be like the telecom market. We see that in Italy we are really not paying nothing for our phones, for using our phones like the internet and the phone calls and the messaging, because we have like a really competitive market, which is cool for us as consumers. But at the same time, we don't have the infrastructure for the 5G, for example. That's something that in Italy is lagging behind. That's something that because
is
of
bringing COVID to people.
yeah. So yeah, we need to think. Of course, we need to protect the European consumers. As an European, I would love that. But at the same time, we need to think also what's next. What do we want to become? Like we are in the middle of USA and China that are the big players, and we are in the middle like doing nothing. So yeah, stop with politics. I would say. Okay.
No, 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 no. I really liked your point. As I said, it's something we don't necessarily think about. And yeah, I mean, we want a stronger Europe, a securer Europe. But I mean, safety and strength do not necessarily come with no risks. And I feel like maybe if we asked consumers, they would probably be able to tell us, probably they would want to embrace a bit of risk in order to have better services. As you said, you wouldn't mind 5G, would you?
Yeah.
Um, And in that light, I would want to talk because of the idea that maybe we should think about the kind of implications of overregulating. I would want to talk about the combining and cross-using of data on gatekeeper platforms. So it is something that I find really, really interesting because, as I said, I'm an avid online kind of terrible buyer. I do buy an incredible amount of clothes, especially as every girl should do. And I have to say that when I'm looking for example, evening dresses, and sometimes I then get a notification from Booking that I could possibly think of going to that nice hotel, I have to say that that's quite useful. And what I'm really scared of is that there is a total prohibition for unless specific situations of consent. But as I said, consent is really difficult to give. There is a prohibition to combine and cross-use data given through like basically collected from one service on the gatekeeper platform into another of the gatekeepers services. So as I said, an example is for Google has Google reviews, but also has Google Marketplace. So if I'm buying something on Google Marketplace, Google can't use the data it's collected to kind of suggest me stuff on Google reviews. But sometimes that's quite useful. And it's really difficult to think of everything when you have really little time. So what's your view on this? Like, do you think there is a way to allow me to have my good recommendations, but without necessarily having me spending hours and hours on websites and then kind of collecting my data and then deciding that I should vote Meloni? I will not, but anyways.
I agree. I mean, my answer is not black or white. It's for sure like in the middle. It's a gray area because as I said before, like we don't want to have like just regulation or just like freedom for these big tech platforms. So I think also in this case, in the crossing user data, you should not give out all of your data, but at the same time, an informed consumer could also share some data because, as you said, like sometimes that could be useful. But also, I think the regulators are there just to think about what's best for us because we don't have the time, as you said. We are not really informed about, like, for example, for me, uh, I don't know. Like if I look at my phone right now, it's a bit hard to understand who is using my data, who did I give my consent to. So the regulators should think for us in this case. And yeah, I mean, it should be always in the middle. Like it's a trade-off. You have to balance the two things and find like a compromise. That's what politics does.
Yeah, that's not what law does. And I'm a bit scared of this because sometimes I would say that we want to go against the bad guy, but I mean, we're not talking of a murder here, we're talking of data. And sometimes there isn't, as you said, a cross-cut bad guy. That could be a kind of man in the middle in a way. Um, that said, I was just wondering, do you think that these obligations are kind of like easy to implement for firms? Like, do you think that they can actually just press a button and make it work? Or do you think that they actually need to think about it?
No, I mean that's not that easy for sure. Like gatekeepers, they have for sure like a price. We can talk a little bit about what are the specific concerns of gatekeepers about the DMA. And what are the more general concerns? Again, we talk just specifically about the DMA. They have like some costs to implement these rules that are like from the European Union, and we can talk about direct costs that usually are not that high for their according to their revenue, but there are also indirect costs that are related to a lot of other things for this gatekeeper. So they have this kind of cost, and of course, as we said before, the innovation cost, because this could narrow down your space of innovation, and it is related to the DMA. But if we want to widen a little bit the picture here, we can think about the European regulatory landscape. We have right now the AI Act, we have the DSA, the DMA, the GDPR. So if I'm like a big
Competition laws. There's also competition laws. I know.
Yeah.
It's my last exam, I hope.
Yeah, also European competition law. And I hope we will have someone talking about this soon, because it's a really interesting topic, like the intersection between the DMA and competition law, because I think the DMA is more saying what you as a platform you have to do and what you don't have to do, while the competition is more about like mergers, a little bit like putting like a competitive framework for everyone, and not just obligation for the gatekeepers. But all of these laws, all of these things going around the regulatory landscape of the European Union is a lot. It's basically a lot, and it could be really difficult for a tech platform to respect all of this. And also it's difficult because this could have like some overlapping rules that you need to understand. Like we did also a presentation about the AI Act and the GDPR that are like they have like things that are overlapped. Exactly. And that is a problem. That's something indeed what I see in Brussels right now, that these companies are asking for simplification of rules right now. With a new commission term, they're saying, okay, enough with the rules, let's implement them, that's cool, but now let's also simplify what's the context here.
That is a very good point, actually. And I would also want to say, like, because these companies are kind of in the spotlight, because you also mentioned the AI Act, I mean, they're all using algorithmic decision making, of course. It's easier, it's much quicker. They have the means, they have the money to get the data centers, so why not? But what I was thinking about is like all the companies that are kind of like left in the shadow. So there are loads of other smaller businesses, or businesses that offer different services, or businesses that offer a variety of services, amongst which also that of, for example, advertising, which of course are not necessarily viewed as agents in the digital market. So this big kind of like gatekeeping companies that you have talked about, they are designated by the Commission. And we're talking of Amazon, Google. I mean, X didn't make it. And my concern is that there are many other players kind of laying behind the limelight. So I'm thinking of, for example, publishers, because I think we don't talk about them that much. And they tend to be national publishers as well. So like publishing companies tend to be a bit more national rather than, for example, from big American companies. But they do use ad tech kind of selling this bidding mechanism that uses AI, for example. And because they're national, they tend to get a lot less scrutiny. But I mean, the moment that big tech companies need to be so careful about the advertisement they're publishing and the way they use, for example, online behavioral advertising, we can see that these platforms, these publishers, which are the third man between the business and the big gatekeeper, they could actually cut themselves a big portion of the market, because they are able to use specific means because they're not under the radar of the DMA. But at the same time, that would give them, as you said before, a very unfair type of advantage because they don't fall within that description, but they are kind of doing the same thing to consumers. So I feel like we need to look at all of these companies that are kind of in between business, consumer, and the big gatekeeper, because it's in that shady area that actually big data leaks could happen. And I'm also thinking of someone else, actually. It's news companies, newspaper companies, newspaper agents. I mean, they do publish a lot of content, especially on their websites, and they do publish a lot of advertising as well, but they're not gatekeepers. So would you have two different regimes in that case? I think it's something that we need to be very careful about, because it's great to go against the big, bulky bad guy, but there's a lot of different bullies between us and our purchases. And I would like to know what happens every time I buy a new pair of shoes. Like, who gets it apart from myself? And yeah, I'm really happy to buy a new pair of shoes. So guys, there's plenty of material from which to get an analysis and from which to get a response to this question. And I will definitely keep on buying shoes so that we can actually reach an agreement on this point. But yeah, that was my kind of last point, which I made very, very profusedly. So I'm so sorry if I keep on talking, but girls that buy shoes keep talking.
No, but I totally agree about the newspaper example. I think the commission should have uh, a view, like a better view on who are these gatekeepers, who should be designated. And I think the commission has the tools to do that, because the DMA, I'm sure it allows delegate and implementing acts on the actual law. So acts that are like specifying little things about the law. And I think the commission will use this in the future for sure, just uh, to better view who are these gatekeepers for sure.
That is exciting to know. The thing is that I would like to conclude for us to conclude on is that whatever we said, we really are grateful for the Commission and for the European system, and we would actually really like for anyone wishing to collaborate with us to come explain if we got anything wrong. So this is a public call. Giacomo and I are really working hard on this, but we can't know everything. And if you really think that we got something terribly, terribly wrong, we will not get offended, and we will be able, if you can click subscribe, so follow our show, and actually get in touch on LinkedIn, on the website, and tell us what was wrong. And we will definitely publish it, and we will definitely talk to you. We will be happy to bring you interesting and insightful comments from anyone wishing to collaborate, and potentially someone that we actually go knock on the door and say, we are not Amazon delivering a good, but we are actually wishing to interview you. So on that, I will go back to my scrolling, and I hope you will do the same. And that is all. Thank you very much for staying with us, and follow Legal for Tech for more.
Thank you. See you next time.
Thank you.